Yogurt is supposed to be the easy choice. The thing you grab when you actually want to do something good for your body without having to think too hard about it. Protein, probiotics, calcium, a little bit of live culture in every spoonful. That is the story printed on the front of the container in big friendly letters, usually next to a picture of fresh fruit and a word like natural or wholesome. That is not always the story written on the back in 6-point font where almost nobody bothers to look. Right now, in refrigerators across the United States, there are yogurt cups sitting between the protein bars and the orange juice that carry more added sugar than a candy bar. There are products marketed almost entirely on the word probiotic that get quietly undone by the second or third ingredient on the label. There are light and healthy lines using artificial sweeteners that Whole Foods Market will not even allow on its own shelves under its own ingredient standards. Most shoppers will never know any of this because most shoppers do not flip the cup around. They trust the front. The front is marketing copy written by someone in a branding department. The back is the actual chemistry of what you are about to eat. So today we are doing the flipping for you. We pulled the labels, the added sugar counts, and the full ingredient breakdowns on the yogurts Americans buy the most, the ones sitting in the biggest, most prominent sections of grocery store shelves from coast to coast, and we are ranking 8 of them from bad to absolute worst. Then, because this channel does not just tell you what to avoid and walk away, we are giving you 3 brands that genuinely earn the health claims printed on their labels, brands you can buy with confidence instead of suspicion. Before we get into the list, here's the rule of thumb that is going to carry you through the rest of this video. A genuinely healthy yogurt has a short ingredient list. Milk, live and active cultures, maybe a little fruit, maybe a little cane sugar if it is flavored, and that is basically it. The moment you see modified food starch, the moment you see 3 or 4 different sweeteners stacked on top of each other, the moment the ingredient list runs 10 or 11 items deep for something that should only need 2 or 3, you are no longer looking at yogurt. You are looking at a dessert product that borrowed yogurt's reputation. Keep that rule in your head as we go, because it is going to explain almost everything on this list. By the end of this video, you will never look at the yogurt aisle the same way again. Let's start at number 8. Number 8. Great Value Original Strawberry Low-Fat Yogurt. This is the one sitting in millions of American carts because it is cheap, it is Walmart's house brand, and the word low-fat on the front does a tremendous amount of psychological work all on its own. Low-fat reads as healthy. It reads as the responsible choice, the one a parent grabs without a second thought while pushing a cart full of groceries through a Tuesday afternoon. Most shoppers stop right there and move on to the next aisle. Here is what they are not reading. A single container carries somewhere around 16 grams of added sugar. That is close to a third of the daily added sugar limit most nutrition guidelines recommend for an entire day, sitting quietly inside what looks like a small, harmless breakfast cup. And the sugar is not even the only issue working against you here. The ingredient list includes fructose and modified food starch, additives that exist almost entirely to fake the texture and sweetness that fat would normally provide if the product had not been stripped down to low fat in the first place. You are paying less at the register, which feels like a win, but you are getting a sugar and starch substitute standing in for the actual nutritional job yogurt is supposed to do. That is the trade-off nobody mentions on the shelf tag, and it is the first sign that low-fat and healthy are 2 very different promises. This is also the pattern you are going to see repeat itself across most of this list. A single word on the front of the package doing the job that an entire nutrition label should be doing, while the label itself tells a noticeably less flattering story underneath. Number 7. Le Yogurt does have real things going for it, and we want to be fair about that before we get into the problems. It is inexpensive. It genuinely contains live probiotics, and the flavors lean into popular, well-loved tastes like blended mango and other tropical fruit combinations. That part of the pitch is honest. That is real. The bad news is the sugar load is among the highest of any mainstream yogurt brand on a US shelf, and it is not particularly close. The blended mango flavor alone can carry somewhere between 18 and 21 grams of added sugar in a single serving, while only delivering around 7 grams of protein in that same cup. Sit with that ratio for a second. You are eating roughly 3 times more added sugar than protein, in a product whose entire reputation in the marketplace is built on being a protein and probiotic food for people trying to eat better. Registered dietitians have specifically flagged this brand, by name, as one of the heaviest added sugar offenders in the entire yogurt category, particularly among the flavors marketed toward Hispanic households, where Le Yogurt holds a notably strong shelf presence in US grocery stores. Good marketing, loyal customer base, and a nutrition label that tells a much rougher story underneath it. Number 6. Yo Crunch is honestly the easiest brand on this entire list to call out because the company is not even hiding what it is doing. M and Miss Oreo Crumbles. Sugary granola clusters dumped into a separate side compartment so you can stir them into the cup yourself, turning the whole experience into something that feels playful, interactive, almost like a craft project at breakfast. It feels fun. Nutritionally speaking, it is dessert wearing a yogurt costume, and a fairly thin costume at that. The base yogurt underneath all that crunch gets diluted by candy and cookie toppers to the point where the protein number drops and the added sugar number climbs sharply, leaving you with a product that genuinely belongs in the same category as ice cream sundaes or pudding cups, not in the same category as the plain Greek yogurt sitting 2 shelves over in the same aisle. There is absolutely nothing wrong with eating dessert when you actually want dessert. There is something wrong with eating dessert at 8 in the morning while believing, because the word yogurt is on the package, that you just made a smart and healthy breakfast choice. That belief is exactly what Yo Crunch's packaging is quietly engineered to create. Number 5. Nusa. This is the one that is going to upset some of you, because Nusa has built a genuinely premium, artisanal image in the American market over the last decade. Australian-style yogurt, an unusually thick and luxurious texture, real fruit folded through it, and a price tag noticeably higher than the rest of the aisle that signals quality before you have even tasted a spoonful. To be fair to Nusa, the broader ingredient list is genuinely cleaner than most mass-market brands. There is no asterisk hanging over the quality of what physically goes into the cup. The problem is the sugar, and it is a real problem. The blueberry flavor carries somewhere around 31 grams of total sugar per serving, with roughly 18 of those grams coming specifically from added sugar rather than the naturally occurring sugar in milk or fruit. That is more sugar than a typical can of soda, delivered inside a product that most health-conscious shoppers associate with being a smarter, more sophisticated indulgence than a bowl of ice cream. And because the cup is small and the texture is thick and rich, it is genuinely easy to finish the whole thing in one sitting without ever feeling like you overate, which makes the sugar number even easier to miss. Nusa is not lying to you with cheap fillers or fake flavoring. It is doing something arguably more effective at separating you from a clear-headed decision, using genuine craftsmanship and a premium price point to justify a sugar load that people would never accept from a brand they perceived, on sight, as junk food. Number 4. So Delicious Coconut Milk Yogurt plant-based yogurt currently has a built-in health halo in the American grocery store, and that halo does a lot of unearned work. Dairy-free automatically reads as cleaner, lighter, gentler on digestion, and somehow inherently better for you, regardless of what is actually sitting inside the cup. So Delicious leans hard into that halo, and to be clear, for people with a genuine dairy intolerance or a lactose sensitivity, a coconut-based alternative absolutely has a real and legitimate place in their diet. But evaluated purely as a nutritional swap for dairy yogurt, the vanilla coconut milk version in particular falls apart fast under any real scrutiny. It delivers less than 1 gram of protein per serving, which is functionally almost nothing, paired with only around 2 grams of fiber and roughly 17 grams of added sugar, added specifically to make up for the natural flavor that coconut milk simply does not provide on its own. Now, compare that profile to a standard dairy Greek yogurt carrying anywhere from 10 to 20 grams of protein in a similarly sized cup, and the real trade you are making starts to come into focus. You are not choosing a lighter, gentler version of yogurt here. You are choosing a sweetened coconut dessert that happens to be sitting in the yogurt aisle, wearing a yogurt label, priced like a health food. That is 4 down, 4 still to go, and the next stretch of this list includes one of the most quietly aggressive marketing plays in the entire American grocery store. A brand built almost entirely around the single word probiotic, undercut from the inside by its own ingredient label. We are also going to take apart the single most recognizable yogurt cup in the country, the one sitting in nearly every American refrigerator growing up, and walk through exactly why its sugar number should genuinely concern you every time you reach for it. And then we are closing the avoid list with the brand that has built its entire public identity around the words light and healthy, while quietly putting ingredients into the cup that Whole Foods Market refuses to stock on its own shelves under its own internal ingredient standards. If any of those brands surprised you, type the number in the comments before you forget, because some of the biggest surprises are still ahead. So far, we've covered sugar-packed healthy yogurts, dessert-disguised products, and options that promise nutrition but deliver very little. Now we're continuing the countdown to the worst offender on the entire shelf. And before we finish, we'll reveal 3 yogurt brands that actually deserve a place in your fridge. So far, we've covered Great Value's sugar-packed low-fat yogurt, La Yogurt's poor protein balance, Yo Crunch's dessert-in-disguise formula, Nusa's sugar overload, and So Delicious Coconut Milk's lack of protein. Now let's keep going. Number 3. Activia. Activia has spent more than a decade building its entire brand identity around one idea: probiotics, gut health, that signature bifidus culture promise printed right on the cup. And to be fair, that part of the claim is genuine. Activia does contain real, live probiotic cultures, and for people focused on digestive health, that ingredient is legitimately there and legitimately working. Here's the problem: the flavored varieties, which are the ones that actually sell in the largest volume in American grocery stores, undercut that exact health story. They carry meaningful added sugar, and several flavors lean on modified starches to thicken the texture, rather than relying on the natural creaminess that comes from a well-made cultured dairy product. So you end up with a cup that is doing one genuinely good thing, the probiotics, while simultaneously doing several less impressive things right alongside it. The plain, unsweetened version of Activia is a noticeably better product than almost any of the fruit-flavored versions sitting next to it on the shelf, but it is the flavored cups that fly off the shelf because plain probiotic yogurt is a much harder sell to the average shopper than mixed berry. The marketing budget went toward the flavors. The actual nutrition stayed strongest in the version nobody buys. Number 2. Yoplait Original. This is the yogurt most Americans grew up eating. It is in the lunchboxes, the office fridges, the gas station coolers. It is small, it is sweet, it is genuinely pleasant to eat, and that is precisely the issue. A single serving of Yoplait Original can carry somewhere between 18 and 22 grams of added sugar, which gets you remarkably close to the entire recommended daily added sugar intake from one small cup that most people eat without thinking twice, often alongside other sugary breakfast items in the same sitting. Yoplait does still deliver some calcium and a modest amount of protein, and we are not pretending the product is nutritionally worthless. But when a single yogurt cup is contributing close to a full day's added sugar allowance, the calcium and protein numbers stop being the headline. The sugar number is the headline, and it has been the headline for years, quietly, while the brand's marketing has continued to lean on words like wholesome and imagery of fresh strawberries to keep that number out of the conversation entirely. Number 1. Dannon Light and Fit, and here is the worst offender on this entire list, and it earns that spot specifically because of how it is marketed. This is not a candy-topped dessert pretending to be breakfast. This is a yogurt explicitly positioned as the responsible, calorie-conscious, health-forward choice for people actively trying to manage their weight or their blood sugar. That positioning is the entire reason this brand exists, and that positioning is exactly what makes the ingredient label so jarring. To hit those low sugar and low calorie numbers without using real cane sugar, most light and fit varieties lean on a stack of artificial sweeteners, commonly sucralose and acesulfame potassium, with some lines historically using aspartame as well. Independent ingredient audits have flagged that several components used across the light and fit line, including artificial flavors, the cochineal-derived coloring agent carmine, sucralose, potassium sorbate, and acesulfame potassium, are ingredients that Whole Foods Market will not allow on its own store shelves under its own internal ingredient standards. Read that again. A grocery chain built its entire sourcing reputation around refusing to stock certain additives, and several of the additives it refuses to stock are sitting inside one of the best-selling healthy yogurts in the country. To be fair to Dannon, the company has responded to some of this pressure. There are now light and fit options sweetened with stevia leaf extract instead of artificial sweeteners, and the brand removed an artificial blue dye from at least one flavor after consumer pushback. That is a real, positive step, and it deserves to be acknowledged. But it requires you to specifically seek out the stevia-sweetened version and ignore the original lineup that built the brand's reputation in the first place, which means the average shopper grabbing the familiar purple cup off the shelf, the one they have bought for years, is very likely still getting the artificial sweetener formula. A yogurt that has to lean this heavily on a chemistry set to earn the word light is not the win it is marketed as. This is also the entry that ties the entire list together. Every single brand we have covered so far got there through a different trick. Great Value did it with cheap starch. La Yogurt did it with raw sugar volume. Yo Crunch did it with candy. Nusa did it with a premium price tag distracting from the sugar count. So Delicious did it by riding the plant-based health halo. Activia did it by letting one good ingredient, the probiotic, cover for several mediocre ones. Yoplait did it through sheer cultural familiarity, the cup everyone grew up trusting without ever questioning it. Dannon Light and Fit does it through the most effective trick of all, putting the word healthy directly in the product's identity, so that the label itself becomes the reason people stop reading the rest of the label. Now here's the part of this video that actually matters more than the list of things to avoid. What should you be buying instead? We looked at dozens of brands sold across the United States and found 3 that genuinely earn the trust people put in this category without needing a marketing department to talk you into it. Pure Pick 1. Phage, Total Phage, built its entire reputation on doing almost nothing to its yogurt, which in this category is exactly the point. No preservatives, no artificial sweeteners, no artificial flavors. The ingredient list is short enough to read in 2 seconds, and a standard serving still delivers around 12 grams of real protein. The Total 2% split cup, where the fruit sits separated in its own compartment instead of being blended and sweetened into the yogurt itself, is a particularly smart format because it puts you in control of exactly how much sweetness you add, rather than having a manufacturer decide that number for you in a lab. Pure Pick 2. Siggy's, an Icelandic-style skyr, has built its entire identity around an unusually short ingredient list for a flavored yogurt, which is the hardest trick in this entire category to pull off. No added starches, no gums, no artificial flavors, no artificial sweeteners, no artificial sweeteners. The whole milk fruit flavors typically carry around 5 grams of added cane sugar, and the non-fat fruit flavors sit at 7 grams or less, both of which are dramatically lower than almost every flavored competitor on this list. If you have ever wondered what flavored yogurt looks like when a company actually tries to keep it close to homemade, Siggy's is close to the answer. Pure Pick 3. Stonyfield Organic Plain Stonyfield has spent decades building its reputation specifically around organic, simple ingredient dairy, and the plain variety is where that reputation is most fully earned. Organic milk, live active cultures, and essentially nothing else standing between you and an actual cultured dairy product. There are no artificial sweeteners to hide, no modified starches doing texture work that real ingredients should be doing, and no added sugar competing with the natural tang that good plain yogurt is supposed to have. If you want the closest thing to homemade yogurt without making it yourself, plain Stonyfield, dressed up with your own fruit and a drizzle of real honey if you want sweetness, is about as close as the grocery store gets you. Notice what all 3 of these have in common. None of them needed a candy topper, an artificial sweetener, or a flashy probiotic claim doing the heavy lifting to justify the price. They just made yogurt the way yogurt is supposed to be made and let the ingredient list speak for itself. Let's run through the full list one more time, fast, so it actually sticks. Number 8. Great Value Original Strawberry Low Fat, 16 grams of added sugar hiding behind the word low fat. Number 7. La Yogurt, up to 21 grams of added sugar against just 7 grams of protein. Number 6. Yo Crunch, candy and cookie toppers turning yogurt into dessert. Number 5. Nusa, 31 grams of total sugar wrapped in a premium price tag. Number 4. So Delicious Coconut Milk, less than 1 gram of protein per serving. Number 3. Activia, real probiotics undercut by added sugar and modified starch in the flavored varieties. Number 2. Yoplait Original, up to 22 grams of added sugar in 1 small cup. And number 1. Dannon Light and Fit, artificial sweeteners and additives that Whole Foods Market itself won't stock, sold under the banner of light and healthy. And the 3 to actually trust: Phage Total, for a short ingredient list and 12 grams of real protein. Siggy's, for keeping added sugar down around 5 to 7 grams while still tasting like real flavored yogurt. And Stonyfield Organic Plain, for being about as close to homemade as the grocery store gets. So here is the real takeaway from this entire video. The front of a yogurt cup is advertising. The back of the cup is the actual product. Words like low fat, light, probiotic, and natural are not nutrition facts. They are vocabulary chosen by a marketing team to get you to stop reading before you reach the part that matters. The fix is genuinely simple, and it takes about 10 extra seconds at the shelf. Flip the cup, find the added sugar line, and count the ingredients. If that list reads like a chemistry set, put it back. If it reads like something your grandmother would recognize, you have probably found a real yogurt. One more thing before you go. Think about how many times you have grabbed one of the 8 brands on this list in the last month alone, trusting the front of the package without ever turning it around. Most people, if they are being honest with themselves right now, would say more times than they would like to admit. That is not a personal failure. That is what the entire front of package marketing system on a US grocery shelf is specifically designed to produce. The only real fix is the habit you build starting with your very next trip to the store. Before you go, drop a comment and tell us which brand on this list actually surprised you and which one you are switching to instead. We read every single one. And if you know someone who has been eating dessert for breakfast and calling it healthy without realizing it, do them a favor and send them this video. The yogurt aisle counts on people not looking too closely. Now you know exactly how to look. Hit subscribe if you want more of these grocery store breakdowns, because the cereal aisle is next, and it is so much worse than this one.